Okay, so I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine you have a bank account, and in this account there's $1,000,000, your entire life savings.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now imagine that for 70 years, your whole life, the bank refuses to show you your balance.
Hmm.
You can't make a withdrawal. You can't even get a statement. And when you finally scream and yell and demand proof that your money is still there, you know what they do.
What do they do?
They email you a grainy black and white photograph of a pile of cash, a photo that was taken in 1974.
Right. So the question is, would you trust that bank?
Exactly. Or would you just assume, after all that the money is long gone?
You'd assume it's gone. Of course you would. Any sane person would.
Well, that bank is the United States government, and that bank account is Fort Knox. And that's what we're diving into today.
This is probably the biggest and most dangerous question in all of finance. It's the third rail. You don't touch it.
And we've got a source package in front of us that absolutely touches it. It's titled simply The Fort Knox Conspiracy, a forensic audit of the impossible. And it reads like something that shouldn't exist.
It's got that feeling, doesn't it? Like you're reading a classified document, and the premise it starts with is, well, it's chilling.
It really is. It
Yeah.
says the paper dollar is a ghost, the gold is the only reality. And then it asks the follow-up question that I think keeps central bankers up at night.
What if the reality is missing?
What if the reality is missing? And look, for my part, I'm coming at this as a mystery story. It's got all the elements. A 70-year, secret, powerful figures who suddenly go silent. It feels like a heist movie, but in reverse, the vault might have been emptied from the inside.
And I'm looking at this as, a forensic accountant. I see a ledger with a massive 70-year gap in it. I see a refusal to conduct a basic inventory. And that tells me there's a problem, a huge one.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to use this source material to try and figure out why the U.S. hasn't properly audited its gold since the Truman administration.
We're going to look at the bizarre petting zoo incident of 1974.
And we have to talk about the strange, sudden silence of Donald Trump and Elon Musk on this very topic just last year in 2025.
To finally try and answer that terrifying question, is the safety net of the entire global economy, is it actually empty?
Let's start at the beginning of the gap. The year is 1953.
The infamous 1953 audit, the last time officially that anyone claims to have done a full accounting.
Right. And in the history books, this is presented as a settled matter. Eisenhower comes into office, they do a check, everything's fine, case closed. But the details in this briefing, they paint a very different picture.
Oh, it's calling it an audit is a joke. It's an insult to the entire profession of accounting. I mean, if a public company tried this, the CEO would be doing a perp walk on the evening news.
So walk us through it. What actually happened? A committee goes down to Fort Knox. What do?
Okay, so first, the context. It's a transition of power. That's always a time when you want to check the books, right? Make sure the old administration didn't run off with the silverware. So they form a committee.
And they go into the vault.
They go into the vault. But here's the first problem. According to the forensic historians cited in our source, they only went into a few of the vault compartments. The total sample size they actually inspected was about 5% of the total gold reserves.
5%.
5%.
Okay, but hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a minute here. Statistical sampling is a real thing, isn't it? You don't have to count every single grain of rice in a silo to know if the shipment is good.
That's a fair point. And it works perfectly for rice. It works for low-value, uniform items. It absolutely does not work for what is supposed to be the bedrock asset of the world, where the incentive to cheat is, effectively infinite.
Okay, so why not? What's the specific problem with sampling gold?
It's a metallurgical problem. It comes down to density. Gold is one of the densest metals on the planet. But there's another metal, tungsten, that is almost identical in density.
I've heard about this, the tungsten-filled bars.
Exactly. You can take a tungsten bar, which is very cheap, plate it with a thick layer of real gold, and it will look, feel, and most importantly, weigh exactly the same as a solid gold bar.
So if your entire audit process is just picking up a bar and putting it on a scale?
It passes. The fraud is completely invisible. The only way to truly verify a gold bar is to assay it. You have to test its purity.
And in 1953, how would they have done that?
Back then, the primary method was to drill a core sample. You literally drill a hole deep into the bar and analyze the shavings to make sure it's gold all the way through.
And the records from the 1953 audit show how much drilling they did.
That's the craziest part. They did almost none. They took the seals from the mint at face value. They basically walked in, saw a bunch of shiny, heavy bricks, weighed a handful of them, and then signed off on the whole thing.
So they verified that something heavy and gold-colored was sitting in 5% of the rooms.
Correct. They didn't verify purity, and they just flat out ignored the other 95%. And here's the part that is just, it's mind-boggling. That was it. That was the last time.
That's what I can't get over. 70 years. We're talking 70 years have gone by. We live in an age of unbelievable technology.
Right. We have sensors that can analyze the composition of stars that are millions of light years away. But we can't get a clear accounting of what's in a basement in Kentucky.
I mean, think about it. Today, you could do this so easily. You could bring in non-invasive scanners.
XRF guns, ultrasound, gravimetric analysis. You wouldn't even have to scratch the bars. You could scan every single one. You could give every bar a unique serial number, a QR code, put the whole inventory on a public, transparent blockchain ledger.
You could literally have a live stream camera in every single compartment, 24/7, the Fort Knox Gold Cam.
You could. The technology is trivial. The cost is negligible compared to the value of the asset. If the political will were there, you could have a full, verified, real-time audit done and available to the public in, what, a week?
Probably less. So the fact that they don't, the fact that they actively fight against every attempt to do this.
That's what we call negative evidence. In the intelligence community, if someone has an easy, low-cost way to prove they're telling the truth and they refuse to use it, you have to operate under the assumption that they are lying.
It's the classic, I'd love to show you, but I can't.
And their excuse is always national security. They say, oh, we can't show you the gold or give you details because it would give a roadmap to terrorists or bank robbers.
Which on the surface sounds kind of plausible, I guess.
Except it's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
Fort Knox is one of the most heavily fortified buildings on the planet. It's surrounded by an active military base. Knowing the serial numbers on the bars inside doesn't help you get past the Apache helicopter battalion that guards the place.
So the security excuse is a smokescreen.
It's a smokescreen to hide the truth. The only security they're interested in is job security, by protecting the secret.
And that secret, or at least the deep suspicion around it, really came to a head about 20 years after that sham audit. This brings us to the next chapter in the story.
Ah, yes. My favorite part. The petting zoo.
The source materials analogy here is just perfect. It's so cynical and so accurate.
It truly is. To understand it, you have to remember the context of the time. It's 1974.
The country is a mess. We're in the middle of stagflation, high inflation, and high unemployment. Nixon has just resigned over Watergate. Public trust in the government is at an all-time low.
And crucially, in 1971, Nixon had closed the gold window. He officially severed the dollar's last link to gold. Foreign countries could no longer show up and trade their dollars for U.S. gold.
Which naturally made a lot of people think, wait a minute, why did they do that? Is it because there's no gold left to give them?
Exactly. The rumors were swirling. Credible people in finance and politics were starting to whisper that the vault was empty, that the gold had been secretly sold off or leased out to pay for the Vietnam War or to manage the dollar's value.
So the Treasury Department has a full-blown PR crisis on its hands. The value of the dollar is based on faith, and faith is collapsing. They need to win.
They need to put on a show. So they organize what they call a media day at Fort Knox.
They invite a big group of people, right?
About 150 of them, a bunch of journalists, a handful of congressmen, camera crews from the major networks. They bust them all down to Kentucky for a special tour.
But the tour is very specific, very controlled.
And this is where the petting zoo analogy comes in. As the source explains it, imagine you're a farmer, and there are rumors going around town that all your animals have died. You're broke.
Okay.
So to quell the rumors, you host an open house. But you don't let people roam the farm. You don't let them inspect the barns. Instead, you set up a little petting zoo by the front gate. You bring out one healthy-looking goat. You tie it to a post.
And you let all the visitors pet the goat and take pictures with it.
Exactly. The kids are happy. The parents take a photo. They all go home and tell their friends, we saw the farm. It's doing great. We saw a goat.
But what did they actually see?
They saw a prop. They proved you had one goat. They didn't prove you had a herd. They didn't see the veterinary records. For all they know, that's the last goat you have.
And that one goat in 1974 was one vault compartment.
One. Out of 13 main compartments in the depository, they opened a single door. And you can bet they made sure that one room was stacked to the ceiling.
Mm.
They probably moved gold from other rooms into that one just for the photo op.
They lit it perfectly for the camera.
Oh, of course. It was pure stagecraft.
Yeah.
They let the photographers stand there for a couple of hours, get their shots of the endless stacks of gold, and then they ushered everyone out.
And did it work?
It worked like a charm. The next day, every newspaper in the country had a front-page photo of a room full of gold. The headlines were all, "Fears allayed," and "Fort Knox gold is safe and sound." The panic just evaporated.
But if you're a forensic accountant looking at this event, what did they actually prove?
They proved that in 1974, they had enough gold to fill 1/13 of the vault. That's it, at best.
And even that gold. It wasn't audited. They didn't let the
Mm.
congressman pick up the bars and test them.
No, of course not. It was a photo op, not an audit. It was pure political theater, designed for one purpose,
Yeah.
to restore confidence in the dollar. And it bought them 50 more years of not having to answer the question.
50 years. Because now, anytime anyone brings it up, the government can just point to those old, grainy photos from 1974 and say, "What are you talking about? We showed you the gold. Look."
It was a brilliant, cynical move, and it worked. Until now.
Right. Which brings us to the modern era. The timeline jumps forward to 2025. And the story stops being a historical mystery and becomes a real-time thriller.
Because now you have two of the most unpredictable and powerful figures on the planet suddenly taking an interest in this 70-year-old secret.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
This is where the story gets really, really interesting.
So let's set the scene. It's 2025. Trump is back in the political arena in a major way. Musk has taken over what used to be Twitter and is also running this new Department of Government Efficiency. The culture is primed for disruption.
And the topic of gold, the gold standard, starts bubbling up. It begins trending online. People are talking about sound money again, about the national debt.
And then Trump just pours gasoline on the fire. He's on his plane talking to reporters, and he looks right into the camera and says something to the effect of, "We need to go to Fort Knox. We need to see the gold. If the gold isn't there, we have a huge problem."
Which is a direct shot across the bow of the establishment, the Treasury, the Federal Reserve. He's calling them out directly.
And then Musk, who loved this kind of chaos, immediately jumps in.
He's on X, tweeting about auditing the Fed. He's talking about radical transparency. He even suggests, half-jokingly, that they should live stream the opening of the vault.
Which is, I mean, peak Musk, right? Let's just solve this problem with a webcam and the internet.
The public reaction was insane. Audit the Fed was trending globally. People were making memes. There was this incredible sense of anticipation that finally, after all these decades, the doors were going to be thrown open. We were finally going to get the truth.
And then, nothing.
Absolute radio silence.
It wasn't a gradual thing either. It was like a switch was flipped off. One day, they're both talking about it constantly. The next day, the topic is just gone.
Trump never mentioned the Fort Knox audit again. Musk deleted a couple of his more pointed tweets and moved on to talking about Mars. The news cycle forgot about it within a week.
And the source material argues that this silence is actually the most damning piece of evidence in the entire story.
It's more terrifying than any leaked document could be. We have to analyze that silence. Why would these two men, of all people, suddenly go quiet?
Okay, so the briefing lays out two main theories. Let's start with the innocent explanation. Theory 1, they checked, and the gold is there.
Right. The story is that they got a private briefing, maybe even a secret tour. They were shown the gold, they were satisfied that everything was in order, and they dropped the issue.
What do you think of that theory?
I think it's completely unbelievable. It runs counter to the fundamental personality of both men involved.
How so?
Let's take Trump. If he had gone to Fort Knox and confirmed that America has $700 billion worth of gold, what would he have done?
He would have held the biggest press conference in history.
From inside the vault. He would have been standing on a crate, surrounded by gold bars, telling the world, "Look at this. America is strong. We have the best gold. Don't ever bet against America." It would have been the ultimate PR victory for him.
A symbol of American wealth and power.
Exactly. And Musk. He would have tweeted a selfie of himself lying on a pile of gold like a dragon. He would have taken a victory lap for weeks, bragging about how he forced the government to be transparent.
So for these two specific individuals, silence is not what success looks like.
For them, silence is the opposite of success. Silence indicates they ran into a problem so big, so fundamental, that even they couldn't talk their way through it.
Which brings us to theory 2, the much darker explanation. The national security silence.
This is the scenario where they do get the briefing, but it's not the one they were expecting.
What does that briefing sound like? Who gives it?
You have to imagine a very quiet, serious room, the president-elect, maybe a couple of his most trusted aides. And on the other side of the table, you have the career people, the head of the Secret Service, a deputy from the Treasury, maybe someone from the intelligence community, the people who, actually run the country, regardless of who wins an election.
The so-called deep state.
Call it what you will, the permanent government. And they sit him down and they say something like, Mr. President-elect, we understand you're interested in auditing the gold at Fort Knox. We are here to tell you in the strongest possible terms that you cannot do that.
And the reason is?
Because if you demand a public audit and the world finds out what we know to be true, the United States Treasury market will cease to exist by the end of the day. The global economy will enter a depression from which it may never recover. And it will have happened on your watch.
It's the domino effect. They basically tell him that the lie, however uncomfortable, is now structural. It's the only thing holding the building up.
Precisely. If you, as a president of the United States, send out a tweet that says, I've checked, and the gold in Fort Knox is gone, what happens in the next 5 minutes?
Utter chaos.
Every central bank in the world hits the sell button on their U.S. Treasury bonds. China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, they all dump them.
The value of those bonds would plummet, which means interest rates on U.S. debt would skyrocket.
To 10, 20, maybe 30%. The government would be unable to fund itself. The stock market would experience a crash that would make 1929 look like a mild correction. The dollar would instantly lose half its value.
So by telling the truth, you essentially detonate a nuclear bomb in the middle of your own economy.
You become a hostage to the secret. Even if you're a populist disruptor who ran on a platform of draining the swamp, you cannot be the guy who single-handedly triggers a global depression. The political and historical responsibility is just too great.
So the silence is a signal. It's them acknowledging that they've seen the ghost in the machine, they looked behind the curtain, and realized the wizard isn't there.
When the loudest voices in the world suddenly fall silent on a specific topic, you have to assume they were told something truly terrifying, something that made them realize the game is bigger and more fragile than they ever imagined.
But here's a crucial nuance that the source material brings up, which I think is fascinating. It's not just a binary choice between the gold is there and the gold is gone. There's a third option.
This is where we get into the really sophisticated Wall Street-style mechanics of how you can make something disappear while it's still sitting right in front of you.
We need to talk about rehypothecation.
It sounds like a complicated, scary word, but the analogy the briefing uses makes it incredibly simple to understand. It's the selling the same car to 10 different people trick.
Okay, let's break that down. Walk me through the analogy.
All right. Imagine you own a beautiful classic car, a Porsche 911. It's parked in your driveway. You can see it, you can touch it, you can wash it on weekends. It is physically in your possession.
Okay, it's my car.
It appears to be. But what if I, as a trusted financial institution, have the title to your car, the legal document of ownership, and I take that title to Bank A and I use it as collateral to get a loan?
So now Bank A has a legal claim, a lien, on my Porsche.
Correct. But then, because I'm a big, important bank, I go to Bank B, and I pledge that same title as collateral for another loan, and then I do it again with Bank C and Bank D.
Wait a minute, you can't do that. That's fraud. You can't use the same car as collateral for 10 different loans.
In the world of physical objects, no. In the world of high finance, it's called rehypothecation, and it's the basis of the entire derivatives market. It happens trillions of times a day. You create multiple paper claims on the same single physical asset.
So let's apply this to Fort Knox. The gold bars sitting in the vault are the Porsche in the driveway.
They are the physical asset. They're there. If you manage to get inside, you would see them stacked up. But the real question is, who holds the title? Who has the legal claim of ownership on those specific bars?
Well, the U.S. Treasury, right? The American people.
That's what it says on the official balance sheet. But central banks all over the world engage in what are called gold leases or gold swaps.
What does that mean, they lease the gold?
It means they lend their physical gold, usually to a large bullion bank like a JP Morgan or an HSBC, in exchange for a small amount of interest. The bank can then use that gold in the market.
Why on earth would the U.S. government do that? Why would they let their gold out of the vault?
There are two reasons. The official reason is to earn a small return on a dead asset. But the real reason, as the source argues, is to suppress the price of gold.
Explain that. How does leasing gold keep the price down?
Because gold is the canary in the coal mine for the dollar. If the price of gold is soaring to, say, $5,000 an ounce, it's a giant, flashing neon sign to the world that the dollar is losing value. That inflation is out of control. It's a vote of no confidence in the government's currency.
So it's in their interest to keep the price of gold looking stable and low.
It's paramount. To do that, you need to increase the supply of gold available for sale, so they lease the physical gold to a bullion bank. That bank can then sell claims on that gold into the market. Paper gold, futures contracts, ETF shares, which creates artificial supply and pushes the price down.
So an investor in, say, Zurich, buys a gold certificate from a bank thinking he owns a specific bar of gold.
Yes, and the U.S. Treasury thinks it owns that exact same bar of gold sitting in Fort Knox.
And the bullion bank in the middle just collects fees on the transaction.
And as long as nobody ever asks to actually take the car out of the driveway,
The whole scheme works. Everyone's balance sheet looks good. The U.S. claims it has the gold. The investor in Zurich claims he has the gold. Multiple people think they own the same thing.
the scam only breaks when someone says, okay, enough with the paper. I want my physical Porsche. Deliver it to my house now.
That's the run on the bank.
That is the run on the bank, and that's what a real audit would trigger. Because a true forensic audit doesn't just count the bars, it checks for encumbrances. It asks who has a legal claim on these assets.
And they can't answer that question honestly.
If they did, they might have to admit that 100% or even more of the gold in Fort Knox has been leased, swapped, and rehypothecated. That it legally belongs to the Bank of England or the German Bundesbank or 1,000 different hedge funds. It's on our soil, but it's not our asset anymore.
That is a terrifying thought. The idea that the vault is full, but it's full of someone else's gold.
And in financial terms, that's exactly the same as the vault being empty. If you don't have unencumbered title to your collateral, then your currency has no backing. The result is the same.
Which leads us to the inevitable, terrifying conclusion of this whole thing. The endgame. What happens when the music stops? The source material calls it the 50% haircut.
Right. This is the part of the briefing that runs the simulation. What happens on the day the truth comes out?
Let's walk through it. A major country, let's say China, demands physical repatriation of its gold and the U.S. can't deliver. Or a whistleblower leaks the internal leasing documents. The secret is out.
The first thing that happens is that the magic spell is broken. The entire value of the U.S. dollar is predicated on one thing: the full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
The promise to pay.
The promise. The moment the world realizes the collateral behind that promise is gone, that faith evaporates instantly.
And that leads to the fire sale on U.S. debt we talked about.
A global stampede for the exits. The dollar index, the DXY, which measures the dollar's strength against other currencies, would collapse. The source speculates a drop from its current level of around 105 down to 70, or maybe even 50.
A 50% devaluation almost overnight. What does that feel like for a regular person listening to this right now?
This isn't your normal slow creep inflation where a gallon of milk goes up 10 cents. This is a monetary shock event. Your world changes in 24 hours. Anything you buy that is imported, which is a lot of things, doubles in price.
Your phone, your TV, your clothes, the coffee you drink?
The gas for your car. Oil is priced in dollars, so the price of oil would effectively double, meaning gasoline at the pump would be $10, maybe $12 a gallon overnight.
And what about my savings if I have $100,000 in my bank account?
You still have $100,000. The number doesn't change. But its purchasing power has been cut in half. It now only buys what $50,000 bought yesterday. Your life's work, your savings, everything you stored in that currency has taken a 50% haircut.
So how does the system not just collapse into a black hole? There has to be a stabilization point, right?
Yes. The government would be forced to act. To restore any kind of trust, they would have to repeg the dollar to a hard asset. They'd have to announce a new dollar, backed by whatever unencumbered gold they do have left.
But the price of gold would have to be reset at a much, much higher level to make the math work.
It's just a simple division problem. You take the total money supply, all the dollars in existence, which is roughly $20 trillion for M2, and you divide it by the number of ounces of gold the U.S. claims to have, which is about 261 million ounces.
And that doesn't give you $2,000 an ounce.
Not even close. Depending on how you measure the money supply, you get a number somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per ounce of gold. That is the new official price required to reestablish backing for the currency.
A 5x to 7x move from today's price.
And the briefing also makes a fascinating prediction about silver.
Right, the gold to silver ratio.
Historically, for centuries, that ratio of gold's price to silver's price was about 15 to 1. Today, it's more like 80 to 1. In a monetary reset, there's a strong historical precedent for that ratio to compress, to return to its mean.
So if gold goes to $15,000 an ounce,
And the ratio just goes back to a more modern 50 to 1, you're looking at $300 silver. If it goes back to the historic 15 to 1, which is what many hard money advocates believe would happen, you're looking at $1,000 per ounce silver.
those numbers are just staggering.
Yeah.
But the source makes a very important point here that I want to emphasize. It says, you aren't getting rich.
This is the most critical concept to understand. If you own an ounce of gold and its dollar price goes to $15,000, it's not because your gold suddenly became more valuable. It's because the dollar became almost worthless.
You're not buying a Lamborghini with your gold coin.
No, you are simply able to buy the same loaf of bread or the same tank of gas that you could before the reset. Your gold has preserved your purchasing power, while everyone who held their wealth in paper dollars got wiped out. It's a lifeboat in a currency tsunami, not a lottery ticket.
So if we take this scenario seriously, if we accept that the risk is real, that the silence of the elites is a major warning sign, what do we do about it? This brings us to the final section, the verdict and the strategy.
And to understand the strategy, you have to understand one key term: counterparty risk.
Define that for us one more time.
Counterparty risk is simply the risk that the other person or institution in a financial transaction won't be able to hold up their end of the bargain. If you deposit money in a bank, the bank is your counterparty. You are taking the risk that they will actually be able to give it back to you when you ask for it.
And the source describes Fort Knox as the ultimate counterparty risk.
It's a black box wrapped in an American flag. You are trusting an entity that is $35 trillion in debt, has a documented history of conducting sham audits, and flat out refuses to use simple modern technology to verify its single most important asset. From a risk management perspective, that is an unacceptably bad counterparty.
So the strategies in the briefing are all about eliminating that risk. Strategy number 1 is a mindset shift. Assume the vault is empty.
Just operate your financial life under that assumption. Don't build your retirement plan on the hope that the government will manage the dollar competently forever. Assume the dollar is an unbacked fiat currency nearing the end of its natural historical life cycle, and plan accordingly.
Which means not having all your eggs in the dollar basket. You can't just be in cash and bonds.
Which leads directly to strategy number 2, which is the most actionable one. Hold physical. And the mantra here is crucial. If you can't touch it, you don't own it.
This goes back to our rehypothecation discussion. A lot of people think they own gold because they bought an ETF like GLD or SLV. The source says this is a dangerous mistake. Why?
Because you don't own gold. If you read the fine print in the prospectus for those funds, you own a share in a trust. That trust, in turn, supposedly owns gold. But it's held within the same banking system, in the same vaults in London and New York that are part of this paper shuffling game.
And they have escape clauses.
They have huge escape clauses. They almost all contain language that says during periods of market disruption, or if they can't source the physical metal, they reserve the right to settle your shares in cash.
So at the exact moment of crisis, when you need the physical gold the most,
they hand you a pile of the very same hyperinflating paper currency you were trying to get away from. The ETF is part of the system you're trying to insure yourself against. You cannot hold your fire insurance policy in a building that's about to burn down.
So hold physical means what exactly? Coins, bars.
Yes. Gold and silver coins or bars that you take personal delivery of. You either store them yourself securely or you use a private non-bank vaulting service that is fully allocated and audited completely outside the traditional financial system.
Because a 1-ounce silver coin in your hand has no counterparty risk.
Zero. It's not a promise to pay, it is the payment. It's a tangible asset that has been money for 5,000 years and isn't dependent on any government or bank to have value.
And that brings us to the final strategy from the briefing. Strategy number 3, watch the silence.
We come full circle, back to Trump and Musk. The briefing argues that the actions of the elites are your best early warning system. When they start talking about a problem, you should be paying attention. When they suddenly stop talking about it, you should be taking action.
Because their silence means the problem has escalated from a political talking point to a genuine national security crisis.
Exactly. Don't wait for the official story to break on CNN. Don't wait for the president to give a solemn address from the Oval Office saying, "My fellow Americans, there's been a slight issue with our gold reserves."
By the time that speech happens, it's too late. The repricing is over.
The game is over. The lifeboats will have already been filled, the banks will be closed, you won't be able to buy gold or silver for any price because no one will be willing to sell it for a dying currency. You have to be positioned before the silence breaks.
It's an incredible journey we've been on looking through this source, from the lazy audit of 1953 to the Hollywood production of the 1974 petting zoo to the deafening silence of 2025. It's so easy to just file this under conspiracy theory and go on with your day.
It's certainly more comfortable to do that. We all want to believe the system is stable. We want to believe our money is safe. It's a deeply ingrained human need.
But when you lay out the facts, as this briefing does, the consistent refusal to audit, the technological foot-dragging, the PR stunts, the math of the rehypothecation, it paints a picture that is very, very hard to ignore.
It's a picture of a global financial system that is running on the fumes of a promise made in 1944, and that promise has been broken over and over again. All that's left is faith, and faith can vanish in a heartbeat.
I want to end by reading the final warning from this intelligence briefing, verbatim, because I don't think I can say it any better, and it hangs in the air.
Let's hear it.
The paper dollar is a ghost. The gold is the only reality, and the reality might be missing.
That just sends a shiver down your spine.
It does. So I guess the final question we have to leave with everyone listening is this. What do you believe? After hearing all this, do you believe the gold is there, safe and sound in its Kentucky vault? Or do you believe it's been sold, leased, and leveraged into oblivion, leaving us holding nothing but a ghost?
And maybe more importantly, if it is a ghost, what are you going to do about it? What does value even mean to you if the unit of account we all use is built on a foundation of nothing?
Something to think about critically.
The silence is the key. Don't forget to watch The Silence.